Hey everyone, welcome back to another Tic Tac Taiko. Taiko players are known for making big, loud sounds, but big, loud sounds are often really difficult to practice good technique. You can use smaller and quieter sounds to make your technique a lot better, and that's what we're going to do today. Are you ready? Come on. Let's just jump right into the most important thing to listen to, and that's tempo. I talk about tempo all the time, so the fact that this is the most important thing to listen to shouldn't be a surprise. Think of tempo like driving a car. You're trying to stay as much in the middle as possible. You don't want to get too close to the slow line or too close to the fast line, and all the while to make this happen, you're making small micro adjustments, and I bet you don't even know you're making them. You can look and see them and be aware of them, but in general, it happens without you even noticing. Just like breathing, walking, scratching an itch, you do these things automatically, and that's how we're keeping our tempo. Just like with driving, it's often where you can see that you're going to turn up ahead, so you compensate a little bit, trying to stay in the middle, but what often happens is you compensate too much, and then maybe sometimes too much the other way, and this is the same thing that happens when playing tempo, often though in smaller increments. Sometimes there are bumps or dips that you see that you can adjust to, or sometimes they happen and you have to react to them. The last thing I want to say about tempo is a universal piece of advice. The better a person gets at a skill, any skill, the better their perception of that skill is in themselves and others. And what I find happens a lot when I teach karate, when I teach taiko, or even when I do those arts, people get better and then they realize that, oh, I'm not as whatever as I thought I was. In this case, I'm not on tempo as much as I thought. I'm much more aware of those differences. And they often feel like they've actually gotten worse, even though that doesn't make any logical sense. It's what it feels like. But realize that you've gotten better. You've gotten to a point where now you can see what more needs to be worked on. And that progression never ends. It sometimes gets smaller and smaller as you get up in increments, but it will always continue to be that way. So when you are more aware of the things you're not doing well, it's probably because you've gotten better. Now let's dig down past tempo to the next layer, and we get to dynamics. Dynamics are a lesson that every taiko player gets from day one. You've got your loud notes and you've got your quiet notes. In terms of listening, dynamics can be boiled down to bias. By bias, I don't mean your political affiliation. I don't mean whether you like cats or dogs better. I mean, how is your body positioned? Is it giving one side or one hand an advantage over the other? Let's take the generic shime daiko or chu daiko stance. Here I have an evenly matched position. It's mirrored if you think about it. If I have a line running down through the center or a line running down across the middle, the reflection would be the same from both hands. They have the same amount of potential to play the same volume at any given time. I can raise them up, they would both go to the same amount. I can raise them out, and they both go to the same distance. So this has the best chance of producing the most even dynamics. We're going from almost no bias to the other extreme, nothing but bias, narame. This also includes yoko uchi or miyake daiko, anything where the drum is on one side of the body so that one hand is much closer than the other. When I start in a default position, it's immediately obvious how much bias my right hand has over my left. If I just use the right hand and I don't even think about the left hand, you can tell how much power I'm going to generate. All that velocity, all that force, boom, that's a loud note. And when I just look at the left hand, I can still generate a lot of power through that velocity. But comparing the two, there's no contest. Now, if I really try to even things out, I mean, I can do this, but this doesn't look good. It certainly doesn't feel good, and I'm not going to play like this for very long. There's your bias, plain as day. But there's more. I'm right-handed, like most of you. My right hand has the advantage. I don't have to try as hard. It's going to be loud. Left hand, disadvantage. So now I've got two things the right hand has over the left. How on earth do I make things even? Well, the first way is what I mentioned earlier. When you're playing at a position where you don't have a lot of time to pull things back, the bias is a lot less. Also, you can play less loud with the right hand. You can compensate. Try not to play full on with the right or bringing the left up a little bit without sacrificing technique. Those are both ways you can help narrow the bias. And now we're going to dig one more layer down past dynamics, and we're going to get to timbre and tone. Despite what you might be thinking, timbre and tone was not a 70s disco duo. Timbre and tone describes the quality, the flavor of the sound coming out of your taiko. Anyone who's ever touched a drum before knows that hitting somewhere near the center is going to sound different than somewhere near the rim. This is the most obvious difference that you might hear in tone. But what you might find in a mirrored position with no visible bias is that hitting one side sounds different than hitting the other. This can be really frustrating when you start to think about it and focus on getting an even sound. There are three reasons why you might not get an even sound as mirrored and non-biased as you can get. The first is the drum. You can't see the quality of the head that you're playing on except for the very surface. You can't tell if over here there's a big patch that's much thicker, or over here it's more dense, or over here it's thinner. You can only find that out by hitting and exploring that drum head. The second thing is your bachi. Unless your bachi are perfectly evenly weighted, the same density and the same length, you might have some variation. Also, what about the part of your bachi that's touching the taiko? Is it the same curve on one that it is on the other? The exact same? Are you sure? You might think so, but remember your bachi are turning slightly as you play. I've talked about micro adjustments in the past. So you might start one way and one hit turns it half a turn, and now it's no longer that case. And the final factor is you and me and basically all of us taiko players. How you're holding your bachi is a huge factor, and sometimes it feels like you're holding it the same way, or it looks like you are, but it isn't. This is an exaggeration, but are you making sure that you're holding the bachi in the exact same position in both hands? Are you making sure that one hand isn't turned differently than the other? Are you making sure that one hand isn't slightly forward or slightly out from the other? Are you making sure that the angles are the same? On top of that, you're probably right-handed, or if you're not, you're left-handed. There's very few of us who are truly ambidextrous, and that's going to play a factor as well. Now, when you take all of those human factors, and the bachi factors, and the drum factors, you might start to wonder how it would ever sound even when you play. But it's possible, and it sometimes just takes effort and time. Let me tell you a quick story about one of San Jose Taiko's shime daiko. San Jose Taiko has a lot of drums, a lot of shime, but this one had a particular head that was very tight, very high. And even when every now and then we would take all the shime down, get rid of all the tension, and then retighten, we would renumber according to which one was now the highest, and this one was almost consistently the highest. I got to play that shime a lot, and I got to learn a lot of its nuances. For example, if I wanted to play perfectly even, having a mirrored position around 10 and 2 wouldn't cut it. I had to be around 3 and 9 to start. And then my left hand had to move up about half an inch and just slightly in. Now this position is not even on a visual inspection, but these spots right here gave me the closest I've ever been to having a perfect sound between my right and left hand. And the only way I was able to achieve that was familiarity, time, and intention. Please don't feel like you have to have perfectly even sounding between the left and right hand. That is not a huge priority. But I will say this, it's important to be aware of it. There's nothing worse than, for me at least, having a drum and having tanto, 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 tanto. It's almost like having an alarm clock that you can't quite reach and you can't shut off, and it's just going to keep on annoying you until finally you get out of bed, or finally the song's over in this case. And it's not that you want to try to figure things out during a performance. There's a little room to play, but you don't want to be searching, and you definitely don't want to be looking while you're searching. This is something you want to be doing outside of practice as much as possible. But being aware of it means that, again, you have a little bit of wiggle room during a song to try. Some of the stuff I talked about today applies to everyone. You can immediately work with it. But admittedly, some of it is a little nuanced, might be a little too much fine-tuning for some people, depending on how long you've been playing taiko or how interested you are in getting better. But something I talk about a lot is planting seeds. You now have seeds that are going to slowly grow, and someday down the line, you may find yourself with the time and or opportunity to make your taiko sound better through small adjustments. And I guarantee you, even if the audience doesn't hear it, you will feel satisfaction in knowing that you played better taiko. So if you liked this week's video, let me know with a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're getting close to 300. I want to do something special at 300 subscribers. Don't know what that is yet, but it'll be special. And until next time, keep on practicing and be well.